you've quite possibly heard of or maybe even seen some of these flicks, or perhaps you didn't even know they existed. Either way, you would be forgiven for not realizing that these 10 features were some of the most successful films ever made. So let's get to it. I am Gareth here from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 films you didn't realize were gigantic successes. Number 10, Once. Musicals, or films about/involving a lot of music, have a habit of chipping away at the box office and sticking around for a while. So when a romantic musical drama set in Ireland wandered onto the scene in 2007, after years stuck in development, many rightfully thought that the mellifluous film with a 97% Rotten Tomatoes score would make a bit of noise and convince people to head to the cinema to see what all the fuss was about. At both the Sundance and Dublin Film Festivals, Once won the Audience Awards, and even Steven Spielberg praised the little flick for giving him enough inspiration to last the year. The film didn't break the wheel or earn anywhere near as much as other musical entries like The Greatest Showman or A Star Is Born, but it still performed admirably based on how much the plucky indie cost to produce. On a $150,000 budget, the film went on to gross $23.3 million worldwide, which is quite staggering when you really think about it. Number 9, The Stewardesses. When asked the question which flick was the most profitable three-dimensional film of all time, a couple of features will probably spring to mind. Avatar, The Force Awakens, Endgame, all are realistic suggestions, but these pictures all come up short to a softcore comedy film which was released towards the end of the swinging 60s. The film in question was the Alan Silliphant Jr. directed, produced and written project by the name of The Stewardesses, which was made with a pitiful budget of just $100,000. Originally rated X, the flick was reshot and adapted in order to qualify for an R rating, and placed in just over 800 cinemas, while managing to reach 30 overseas markets too. Silliphant's film found a way to stay in theatres for an extended 3-year period, so a decent return on the investment put into the feature was likely. However, the $25 million that the tongue-in-cheek raunchy comedy went on to earn was a simply mind-boggling amount of profits for a film which was originally framed as a low-budget 3D adult feature. Number 8, Napoleon Dynamite. So here's a film you've probably more than likely seen, or perhaps you've only had the pleasure of witnessing Napoleon Dynamite strutting his stuff in passing. Regardless of your knowledge on the subject, there's no arguing with the fact that this Jared Hess-directed awkward comedy became something of a cult hit in the wake of its initial release in 2004. What perhaps doesn't get touched upon enough is just how successful this film actually was at the box office during its cinematic run. Debuting at Sundance, there was a sizable amount of buzz surrounding John Heda's pitch-perfect performance, and people all around the world flooded into theatres to gorge on the picture. This was reflected in its impressive haul of $46.1 million worldwide, which is even more astounding when you factor in the indie film's tiny $400,000 budget. Heda was actually only paid $1,000 for his starring turn, before renegotiating and receiving a cut of the film's sizable profits. And rightly so. Number 7, Tarnation. Any film that takes 20 years to shoot and is cut from hundreds of hours worth of home video footage deserves to be seen by as many eyes as possible. And thankfully, this next entry attracted a decent amount of people into theatres around the world. Tarnation was a documentary film produced by Jonathan Coet, which told the story of his relationship with his mentally ill mother, winning the Best Documentary Award from the National Society of Film Critics and earning praise for its appearance at Sundance in 2004. The filmmakers actually couldn't even afford the $30,000 to make a film print to show at Cannes, and had to rely on art house distributor Wellspring to fund the flick. This led to a rousing reception at Cannes and global distribution. However, what really makes this release so remarkable was the fact that the original footage was shot and produced on iMovie for just $218. Tarnation eventually went on to earn $1.2 million at the box office. What a world. Number 6, Primer. Primer doesn't jump out as one of the most successful science fiction movies ever to be released in American cinemas. Shane Carruth's Baby boasted a uniquely structured plot and language/terminology, which wasn't exactly dumbed down for a general audience, so it didn't exactly scream guaranteed commercial hit before its limited release thanks to a deal with Think Film in October 2004. Yet a Grand Jury Prize win at Sundance obviously stirred people into wanting to check out the complex time-traveling flick, and the film made $545,000 $10,000 worldwide at the box office. That doesn't sound like a whole lot on the face of it, yeah, but for such an inexperienced crew to produce a film of this caliber on a minuscule budget of just $7,000 was quite simply staggering. The deeply original project, which never compromises its quality despite having such a low budget, went on to become a cult watch for sci-fi fanatics, and even earned a Best Feature award at the London International Festival of Science Fiction. Though it is now mostly remembered for being a niche feat of efficient, high-quality filmmaking, it's worth noting that Primer was also a massive financial success and deserves a great deal of respect for causing a splash in a genre which usually involved entries with embarrassingly bigger budgets. Number 5. The Devil Inside. Over the years, horror flicks have always possessed the capacity to garner a sizable profit, as the majority of these terrifying productions are created on a much smaller budget than that of a family-friendly blockbuster. Yet not all of these concepts have the drawing power to get fans of the genre into a cinema to enjoy the feeling of very nearly crapping their pants. The Devil Inside didn't have this problem though, and thanks to the re-established popularity of the low-budget found footage style, more on that later, William Brent Bell managed to create a film which, despite being panned by critics as one of the worst horror movies ever made, got people a-talking. Most horror fans quite simply wanted to experience a film which many were labelling a cheap, choppy, unscary mess for themselves. And in doing so, the film managed to earn a whopping $101 million at the box office on a tiny $1 million budget. This film may be remembered today as one of the worst ever entries into the horror or found footage genres. But in becoming one of the most commercially successful fright flicks in history, The Devil Inside proved that if your film is marketed wisely and stirring up a critical reaction, people will come and watch it. Number 4. Unfriended. In this modern world of constant social media updates and uploads, it was only a matter of time before a film really harnessed the potential horror that could be forged from within the darkness of your own computer screens. Utilizing online video calls, Unfriended put its own spin on the found footage horror genre and created a supernatural threat in the form of a recently deceased student haunting her suspected bullies into admitting who uploaded the video which provoked her demise. Though Unfriended received mixed reviews, with many critics even branding it as exasperating, people seem to be quite hooked on the premise, and it eventually earned $64 million at the box office, and spawned a sequel which itself earned a reasonable $60 million. The fact these two screencast dark horses were both crafted from an overall budget of $2 million really highlights just how gigantic a success the Skype slashers genuinely were. They may not go down in history as some of the top horror flicks of their generation by any means, but the series can definitely claim to be yet another sizable commercial and financial win for Blumhouse Productions. Number 3. Escape Room. Just when you thought the film industry was beginning to run out of ways to elicit scares and terror from an audience, 2019's Escape Room went and created a horror flick out of one of the 2010's chief stag/hen-do trends. The film revolves around a group of people who have all been tasked with completing a series of seemingly trivial escape rooms, with a $10,000 prize awaiting them if they can, only for the poor souls to realize that their lives are at risk if they fail to successfully find a way out of the titular environments. As far as concepts go, critics felt that the film didn't take enough risk with the premise it was promoting, and therefore the feature felt like a safe experiment. That being said, the box office was kind to the psychological horror flick, and a return of $155 million from a $9 million initial investment opened the door up for a sequel, which turned a not too shabby $66 million too. Number 2. Open Water. If the trailer for Open Water were to find itself on a cinema screen in 2022, you'd probably be left scratching your head, whilst wondering whether what you'd just seen was a parody or an elaborate prank of some kind. However, in 2004, Open Water incredibly managed to lure people into the shark-infested environment that was the middle of the ocean off the back of this B-movie level marketing, and the film itself was actually fairly well received by critics and fans alike. Based on a true story, the film first appeared at Sundance before making a splash in cinemas around the world. Praised for its visceral feeling and minimalistic approach, the picture, which reportedly cost a cool $500,000 to capture on film, eventually reeled in a massive $55.5 million at the box office. The subsequent follow-ups may have tarnished whatever credibility this terrifying survival thriller had originally conjured up, but Open Water should always be regarded as an example of what level of success can be achieved on a low budget, when you have a decent premise to work with, regardless of how wretched the trailers made the concept appear at first. Number 1. Paranormal Activity. Now, I'm not for a second suggesting that anyone on planet Earth isn't aware of the fact that Paranormal Activity activity was a success for Blumhouse Productions when it first crept onto our cinema screens in 2007. However, what is definitely worth highlighting is exactly how much of a monumental win this frightening trip into the found footage genre actually was for all involved. Using a group of unknown actors to depict the story of a young couple being haunted by a demon in their home, this simply shot feature terrorized all those who ventured into cinemas to see it, and the millions who no doubt cuddled up on the couch to enjoy the traumatic experience when it was released on home video. Though it was rightly lauded by critics as a generation-defining commercial horror, the clearest way to measure Paranormal's success was in its box office and home market performance. Grossing $194 million worldwide and earning a further $21 million in Blu-ray and DVD sales, the film made its original budget of $15,000 look like one of the greatest investments in cinematic history. The series which spawned from this original demonic production then went on to earn nearly $900 million worldwide. There's success and then there's astronomical victory, and the Paranormal series has quite happily reveled in the latter ever since its inception all those years ago. And that's our list. Know of any other films you didn't realize were gigantic successes? Let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're at it. Also, if you like this kind of thing, then head on over to whatculture.com and find some more fantastic articles just like the one this video you're watching right this second is based on. I've been Gareth from whatculture.com. Thank you as always for watching this lovely video today. Hopefully I'll see your faces very, very soon, but in the meantime, hey, be good to yourself. Bye bye.